Welcome to the 9th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast, your go-to source for episodic synopses/reviews of most of the currently airing anime, or at least the good ones. We try. Today we'll be covering our 10 shows that we picked last week in our marathon spring impressions and vote. You say marathon, I felt like it was more of a death march. My name is Leo, and I don't save my Audacity project files, which luckily never ends up being a problem. Also with me is...
Bcom. And you're right, Leo. Never has that caused us to lose 4 hours of audio before.
It's not my fault. Audacity apparently has a limit when you save in a WAV format.
This is true. We could never have foreseen this problem. But luckily, we got all of our impressions recorded again for spring 2017.
Because we're crazy like that.
They're better and longer than they were before.
Somehow we made them longer.
But now that we've gotten all the crazy impressions and all the bad shows out of the way, we can just laser focus on the 10 we actually care to watch. So why don't we jump right into it? Starting with Sundays, we have Alice and Zoroku. And we've got episode 3 called Cards to start with. So this episode starts out with Mini C, Tachibana, in an MRI machine at the research facility. She's getting checked out sort of as part of like their regular routine check-ins there on the Dreams of Alice. And we learn that she's a former U.S. Marine. And she was also married, but her husband has died, and we'll learn more about that later.
That kind of killed me about her being a U.S. Marine, because I think she's the most one of the more Asian-looking people in this show, and I was like, what?
I totally agree. Like, her character design does not look like that of like your typical U.S. Marine who you would think of, I guess. But well, you can roll with it, I guess.
Sure.
She seems to be able to summon a ghost of her husband. Like she's being driven around in the back of a car, and they pass by Mount Fuji, and like you see like a shadow of his hands on her shoulder. Like she clearly has this connection with him even after he's died. Meanwhile, Alice is handed a Carl's Jr. cup to drink out of.
Oh yeah, this episode is heavy. I wonder if Hardy's knows.
I guess they probably know. When I was in Japan a couple weeks ago, I did see one Carl's Jr., so they do exist over there. I think it was in Akihabara. So, but yeah, so Ryu's co-worker, Shizuku Ichijo, has some people come to take away the pigs that Alice made. I think so they can experiment on them and like figure out more about them, since like she's creating life out of nothing, basically. They do like miss one when they're picking all of them up, and Alice picks it up and asks, so where do these pigs come from? Like, they're alive, right? What would happen if I were to get rid of this one? So she doesn't really understand like the concept of like life and death, and like, or if it is really a life and death situation. So I was a little bit confused at this point who the people were that took the pigs, but I don't think they're related to the people that are at the research facility. It was kind of confusing.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and say, because it's not really spoiled. Episode 4, they kind of tell you that there's 2 different government factions.
Gotcha. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, they probably should have said it here, but they talk about it in episode 4.
So Shizuku speaks with a girl named Yamada, who is parked in a van outside of the house and who's monitoring like Alice's signal pattern. She gives off some kind of pattern as a dream of Alice. So Zoroku is still really angry that Alice like wrecked his shop and demands an apology, but she's like too young and naive and doesn't understand why she should apologize, since she thinks it was just an accident. She just keeps saying it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. But he wants her to apologize anyway. She needs to learn this lesson, basically. But yeah, Ryu stops Zoroku because he thinks he's being a bit too touchy, and tells Alice that he's been chasing the people who held her at the facility, and asks her to wear a homing device bracelet so they can keep track of her for her safety. She doesn't like the look of the first one, which is like a normal bracelet, but then he offers one that looks like a little like squinty emoticon, which makes her like light up, and she agrees to wear that one so they can keep track of her. And then she just goes back to being her normal self, is super hungry like normal. So we see a scene of Kirei, who's the boy who has the power where he can like, well, he keeps drawing all the time, I guess.
He looks like some like type of like foresight type of power is what I'm getting from it.
Yeah. And tells the Kito, who's one of the men driving him, that he doesn't like Mini C. And Kito asks, why don't you like her? She's always smiling. And he says, isn't smiling all the time the same as never smiling at all? Like, meaning that she's putting on a facade and there's more to her that she's hiding. And then we quickly learn that Mini C's husband died in Iraq while he was defusing a bomb. And she suffered from insomnia after he died, but became a dream of Alice after dreaming that his arms were embracing her, which stabilized her unstable condition up to that point. And she's one of the very few examples of a living being being turned into a quote-unquote card. Even if only part of her being has been turned into a card, apparently, is what they say. We see flashbacks of Mini C and her husband's marriage, which seemed like really extremely happy and nice, before learning that he had been killed in combat, which really crushed her. And then at this point, we get more Carl's Jr. because Alice is hungry, and they get her more Carl's Jr. to eat. There's so much Carl's Jr. product placement. It's ridiculous.
And it completely disappears after this episode. So it almost makes me wonder if they were like, hey, if we throw you some money, will you put our ads in the episode?
It seems like it. So Ryu asks Alice if she'd want to become part of Zoroku's family. And Zoroku's like, what? What are you talking about? But because he had only agreed to take her in temporarily, so he's not exactly happy about this. But Ryu asks him just to do this for him since they want her to live in a normal and happy lifestyle. And the they he's talking about seems to be the government people. So Alice asks Zoroku if he would want her in his house, and he asks her if she has something she'd like to say to him first, because he still wants her to apologize. And she looks like she's about to apologize, but then she just yells, "Toilet!" and she goes to the bathroom.
Toilet.
And so Sanae ties Alice's hair back before she goes into the toilet because it's so long it would get in the way. And she's like, "Are you sure you can go to the toilet on your own?" This is how young Alice is. She's really young.
13.
So yeah, but she seems younger than that in terms of being able to take care of herself. Probably because she grew up in the facility and didn't have a lot of social interactions and stuff.
Man, it's just killing me because you're asking all these questions and they basically just all get answered in episode 4. And I'm like, don't say anything.
We'll cover it next week, I guess. So yeah. So she's sitting and giggling on the toilet. I typically hate scenes in anime where we see little girls on toilets, but this one was kind of funny because she's just thinking about how she's going to live with Zoroku and she's going to be really happy. But at this point, Mini C kind of uses her power, which appears to be she can have her husband's arms reach through objects and across space and time, it seems because his arms come through the ceiling of the bathroom and grab Alice and transport her away. So Sanae quickly realizes something is wrong, and Yamada tells Shizuku that the tracker is moving that they planted on Alice before. So Shizuku finds the tracker, and Alice's tights are on the ground in a little shed because she took her tights off to go to the bathroom. And they rewrote the location of the whole toilet to capture her. So she opens a little shed and the toilet's there and Alice is gone. And then we see Alice. Who's
I couldn't quite catch whose power did that, because Mini C then captured her once she'd basically been teleported, I believe.
It might be all part of Mini C's power,
maybe.
to be able to transport a whole I don't know, it's weird, but it seems Mini C is the one responsible because we see Alice, who's bound and gagged on the back floor of the car that Mini C is driving around in. She's been giving you see a huge needle. She's been given a shot to knock her out, and it's horse tranquilizer or something. I don't know. They say they gave her enough sedative to knock an adult out for 12 hours, but she actually wakes up just a couple hours later. We also see that as Shizuku's chasing after them, she has a mirror gate of her own, and she has a power where she can float through the air and jump from roof to roof as she searches the city for Alice. And when Alice wakes up in Mini C's car, she squirms and tries to make a bunch of noise, but Mini C uses her husband's big hands to press her down with like a lot of like excessive force, so she can't move. Like it seems like Mini C is kind of enjoying using this power against Alice, who's like a little girl. And we see this flashback of when Mini C first was introduced to Alice by Kito underneath the facility. Apparently 10 years prior to this moment, like this huge impossible space was created underneath the facility, and now Alice has populated it with her Wonderland, which is like an endless series of cards. So usually dreams of Alice only have one card, which is like their one power, and they don't even get to choose what it is. But Alice can create anything she imagines, so she's obviously very special. And I think Mini C resents Alice for having this ability to wish for anything she wants, because Kito when she went underneath the facility, planted the idea in her mind that she could use this power if she could harness it to see her husband again. So she continues to like really restrain Alice like with too much power, and enjoying that she could kill her if she wanted to. And that's where the episode ends. So yeah, Mini C is like a real bad dude.
Yeah, she gets on the worse later on, but she gets her reasoning why and whatnot. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah. I was kind of uncomfortable in that scene when like she's being like forced to the bottom of the car.
God, well, don't watch episode 4.
Oh great, that'll be fun. Well, let's move on to something much happier.
I'll just say I'm usually not surprised, but there was one point where I went, oh fuck, because it came out of nowhere.
All right,
I'm sure you'll figure it out when you watch it.
I'm sure I will. All right, I'll probably be super angry about it too. We'll see. So moving on, Little Witch Academia, which we are a couple episodes behind on because during our spring impressions we decided to leave it until this week. But holy shit, were these some great episodes. So let's pick it up.
The best episodes, I would say, of the series so far.
Easily. So we'll pick up with episode 13, which was sort of like the last episode of the first like full half of the season.
I specifically thought this episode was so good that I wrote down they could devolve this series into fan service Lollyland, and I would still have to give it a good score for this single episode alone.
This episode is amazing. I wrote a ridiculously detailed synopsis because I just loved it. So I'll jump into it and get through it as fast as I can. So the three girls are preparing to be the sacrifices to Vajrawa the Wailing at the Samhain Festival. And so Akko's plan is to use her metamorphosis magic to make Vajrawa and everyone else at the festival smile. But Susie and Lotte aren't really buying into the plan because they don't think she's capable of doing it. Like she's never been able to get her metamorphosis magic exactly right. And, you know, they don't want to screw up at the festival in front of everybody. So, but Akko visits Ursula and gets a little bit of confidence because she says she'll help her figure out how to make Vajrawa laugh. Meanwhile, Diana's lackeys pull Akko aside in the hall because they're still pissed that they were like made to stand still for 24 hours.
They were duped.
But they get over it really fast because they're happy because Lotte, Susie, and Akko are going to be made like mockeries of at the festival. But Susie and Lotte overhear this conversation and like they hear the girls calling like Lotte like completely... I don't know. They call her like a girl with like so little presence that like she doesn't even matter. And they just call Susie a weirdo, which who cares? Susie doesn't matter. I mean, Susie doesn't care about being called a weirdo. I mean, and then Susie does this little weird thing where she's like cracking her neck by rolling it around. It sounded like creaky bones. I just liked that little moment. It sounds like she's like 187 years old or something. Ursula finds an old text about Princess Vajrawa, and something about her vestige, which can be found in the Luna Nova archives. So that's what she's going to be looking for the rest of the episode. Meanwhile, Akko actually is working really hard. She's like practicing her butt off like for 3 weeks trying to get this metamorphosis magic right. And this gives Lotte and Susie a little bit more like reason to believe in her. Lotte's saying like, I don't understand what keeps her going all the time. And Susie's like, well, she's just a stubborn idiot. But Lotte thinks it's amazing that she can have all this energy and all this determination. And they're looking around in the room and like she knocks some books off of the desk and Lotte sees that Akko wrote up a plan for what she's going to do. It's called the Trick or Treat Plan. And so the episode cuts to a shot of Akko. She's been working hard for 3 weeks and she's still failing. And she like sort of like falls down on the ground and starts crying. It's this really beautiful shot where you could see like the tears flooding into her eyes and like the night sky is getting blurry. But then Lotte and Tsuki walk into the shot and they cheer her up. They say, "This is a great plan. If we help you like fix up any mistakes, I think this can work." And so she like hugs them and cries, and it's great. So it's finally time for the festival, which is held out on this big sports field, and a lot of the alumna from the academy are attending. Diana opens the festival like as her usual self, and then we get like this like formation witch broom flyover, complete with like contrails, which is really cool. I liked that moment. It was like blue angels flying over a stadium or something. And then Ursula is meanwhile frantically looking for the vestige in the archives, which are full of bookshelves of stuff, so it's taking her a long time.
And not categoried at all.
No, it's impossible. So as the festival goes on, the judges and the teachers and the students are generally like pretty bored by the opening magic acts. Like they're just not particularly entertaining. In fact, the most entertaining thing is when Constanza and Amanda do like cleanup as the garbage crew, because like they're just awesome. Like Constanza has this huge crazy vacuum and Amanda is doing her crazy like sweeping all over the stage, and it's pretty funny. But finally, like Diana and her two, lackey friends go up to Tsuki and Lotte, who are waiting for Akko to finish practicing, and tell them that Akko is just probably ditching them and abandoning them to their own responsibilities. And Lotte stands up for Akko a little bit. She like yells after them that even though Akko is stubborn, that's what makes her who she is, and they believe in her basically. So anyway, Diana goes up to perform, which finally gets everybody excited. And she uses this water summoning magic.
Oh my god, half of your synopsis is just the last scene.
The last scene is fucking ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah. So she uses this water summoning magic to fill the entire stage with a thin layer of water. It's really beautiful. And then she makes this like blue unicorn like explode out of waves from the floor, and it flies through the air, and then it like comes back to her, and she like sort of scratches it under the chin and pets it. And like everybody's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing magic." And it looked really cool. It was pretty awesome. So just before but Akko makes it back in time, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I've been practicing up to the last minute." And she's like, "Let's do this, guys." So they go up to the stage, and Diana is like surprised that Akko actually showed up. And as Akko passes by her, she like whispers in her ear, like kind of demands to Diana, "Watch me." She's like, mitete or whatever. And so Vajrawa, the crazy monster, like awakes, and Tsuki and Lotte immediately get on brooms and fly up to safety. And then so Akko uses her metamorphosis, but it seems like Vajrawa just eats her like before she can finish. But then we see there's like a little mouse running around on the stage, and it's Akko. She actually got into her mouse form just in time.
You should have wrote this like a play-by-play, like you're an announcer or something. Because that's what you wrote.
It basically is. So Vajrawa gets pissed, and for a second it looks like you can see its heart kind of beat. We find out later it's not really its heart, it's a seed of sadness. But then it starts rampaging and destroying the stage, and Akko decides to turn into a flying elephant to try and fly away, but she's having trouble staying afloat because she's terrible at metamorphosis magic. So Lotte summons some balloons to help her stay afloat, and then Tsuki's like, "Okay, it's time for me to help now." So she pours this potion all over Vajrawa that's like sprouts a bunch of mushrooms, which like sort of like makes a little bit of trouble for Vajrawa moving around. But even so, Akko is almost getting close to eating again, until Lotte and Tsuki sprout some like bushes or like what looks like almost like broccoli on top of Vajrawa's head, and Akko is like popping up and out of them, like saying like, "Please cheer up, Vajrawa, please smile." And at this point, like the whole crowd is just laughing their butts off because it's so ridiculous looking. Even the headmistresses and alumni are getting into it, and she continues to just keep trying to make Vajrawa smile, and she keeps transforming into this series of like screwed up forms that aren't completely right. She keeps getting it wrong, but it's so funny, and that's really what counts because it's cheering everybody up. But they realize that Vajrawa herself is not being cheered up because she's kind of being made a mockery of, and so she's still pissed. Meanwhile, Ursula finds the vestige finally, and she's like making her way back to the festival. Vajrawa lets out this massive sneeze, which blows all the three girls way up into the night sky. And then Ursula shoots her familiar, it's like the little bird, up with the shiny Chariot staff and sort of speaks through it to Akko, saying, I found out from the vestige, like, you need to remove this seed of sadness that Vajrawa swallowed way back in the day. And if you remove it, she'll be able to be happy again. She'll be able to smile again. So then all the girls fall straight into Vajrawa's mouth, down into her stomach, and there's this hilarious animation of them going down her like esophagus. You just see their heads like snaking down through, and of course Susi's head is smiling the whole time. She's loving this. And so they get down into like the pit of its stomach, and they find the sorrow seed. And Akko goes to try to pull it out, but Vajrawa kind of like constricts her whole body and like is trying to hold on to this sadness for dear life. But Akko uses her word, the Arai Arira word from the shiny Chariot staff, and the summoning seed, or sorry, the sadness seed like explodes out of Vajrawa in this like pink light, and like this huge pink like beam of light shoots into the sky. And Vajrawa transforms into like this beautiful pink-haired maiden with a princess's tiara on her head, and she laughs, and she like has a flashback to where she was playing with her friends, and she remembers that happiness, and she like dissipates into the air, finally satisfied after all these years of being sad. And then everybody is like stunned. Like Diana is just jaw dropping on the floor. She can't believe what Akko accomplished.
Yeah, everybody's just absolutely blown away by the performance.
Yeah.
And it is really that good. The reactions are right.
Akko is like crying and hugging her friends, and Susie is even like, I give that a passing grade. And then the announcer girl tells Diana like, hey, we're almost done counting. It looks like you're going to be the Moonlit Witch. And Diana's like, well, what about Akko though? And apparently Akko broke the rules, so she's not even in consideration for the final Moonlight Witch Award. But obviously she would have won it if she hadn't. And then in the final shot, we see someone using this weird string of floating blocks around the school tower, and that's where the episode ends. Holy shit, was that a good episode?
I actually kind of want to go back and rewatch it now again, because just the whole thing leading up to that final scene is amazing. And then the final scene it's just not the cherry on top. It's like they've got the fudge sauce on there, they got the peanuts, they put the whole works. It's just amazing.
Yeah, this is just like an unbelievable way to end like the first half of Little Witch Academia. Like finally Akko is like working hard and doing stuff,
being
and, like,
rewarded.
Yeah, we can see why she's the hero of the show finally. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So opening up the second half of the season, we got new OP hype. I really liked the new song for the OP. I kind of felt like some of it was a little bit minimalistic. Like there's like a white background that a lot of the girls are set against, and there's like kind of minimal animation. But thematically, I think it's a strong OP, and you kind of see that in the next couple episodes. Because like there's these moments where like Akko and Diana are walking towards each other, and then they shift into Chariot and another character who we're about to meet. So it's just like a nice like little symbolism of, hey, these characters are rivals, just like their mentors or their people they look up to were rivals back in school in the day. So Ursula thinks to herself, it's time to reveal everything to Akko that she's been hiding. That's like how this episode starts. And the new semester is starting. All the girls have heard that they're getting a new professor today. And Diana overhears Akko and her friends talking about the shiny rod and how they found it in Arcturus Forest, like the Forbidden Forest. Meanwhile, Ursula's called Akko to her office, and she's about to tell her, like, she's about to reveal like that she's Shiny Chariot and tell her all this stuff, but gets interrupted by a call from the professor because the fairies who handle all like the cooking and laundry and cleaning at the academy decided to form a labor union and go on strike, which I love. So the faculty meet and they decide that they can't, like, so the fairies want more of a share of the magical energy that gets emitted from the Sorcerer's Stone. But the faculty just say, like, we don't have any excess energy. We've been like losing energy like hand over fist since like forever, and we just don't have any excess to give them.
So they bust out a graph and everything at some point too.
Yeah, they like summon this little graph. It's like a huge, like the headmistress is like, wow, that's a textbook downward spiral or something. And yeah, so they decide like, oh, we need to send somebody like young and spry to go collect a bunch of energy from like witches who are using parts of the Sorcerer's Stone.
And then they all turn and look at Ursula. She's
exactly.
Like,
Ursula's like, oh. So she goes off to like try to collect everything. So she doesn't get a chance to talk to Akko, and she leaves. So meanwhile, the fairies are like putting up these huge panels as like magical isolators on the top of the tower where the Sorcerer's Stone is to block all of the magic energy. So none of the witches can use magic. And one of the panels like drops and starts falling towards the students, almost like on top of Akko's head. But then this like floating magical like fan like holds it up at the last moment, and this new professor floats down. Her name is Professor Qua. She's got like
Qua? Is that how they say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Qua.
It's the French pronunciation.
Qua.
Qua. It's spelled Croix. And so she floats down, and she's got like this short, like purple hair that she's rocking, and she's got kind of like an evil look in her eye.
Okay, I want to stop here. Her character design is clearly how to make a bad guy 101.
Yeah.
The instant I saw her, I was like, yep, that's a bad guy. Can't fool me, show.
There's definitely... Yeah,
there was just no doubt in my mind. I'm like, if that is not a bad guy, then this show's doing something wrong.
So she's like, she's the one who was like using these like floating like powered fans, and she also has like an evolved broom that she uses to fly, and her evolved broom is basically just a little Roomba, which I thought was hilarious because that is the evolution of the broom. So Qua is a modern magic teacher, and she uses things like iPads and stuff that she's created herself to teach her classes. But the other faculty don't really approve of her modern methods or her like research tools that she's been creating. Meanwhile, the heat is out at the academy, and there's this funny shot of all these girls like holding toothpaste and brushes like strewn across the floor when Akko opens their like bedroom door, because like they've lost all will to live because they can't take hot showers basically. And meanwhile, all the classes have devolved because the lessons plans are just like memorize your textbook because nobody can use magic. So Akko goes to try to convince the fairies to end their strike because she's pissed. But like she immediately is convinced by the fairies to join their side. So she becomes like the lead cheerleader for like the labor union. And Diana comes up to them.
I love that she got switched over. I thought that was pretty funny.
It was pretty great. Diana comes and she tells the fairies, hey, you know what? You're going to lose your jobs if the academy can't function. Do you really want that to happen? She makes like a really good point. Like the professors like applaud. And then Akko's like, she just responds with, the bourgeoisie is blind to the concerns of the working class. And she's like, this girl has a huge luxurious room all to herself. And then the fairies get all pissed again. And they start chanting like, you're an aristocrat at Diana. And so she loses. Then we have this brief scene after that at night where Akko, Lotte, and Susie are like sipping some soup that the fairies gave them to eat. It's like frogwort and bat eye soup, which Akko just like spits all over Susie's face when she finds out. But then they also see this little fairy with like red eyes and like black skin that's making some weird noises near them. And this will come into play later. It's kind of like menacing little fairy. The next day, labor negotiations start, and the headmistress is like sitting across from Akko, and she's like, wait, why are you? She's like, oh, well, I became the general secretary, actually. And she's like, wow, you're really rising up the ranks really fast. So Akko like unleashes this like huge negotiating position. She demands 10% increase in energy for the fairies. But the faculty's like, there's just no way. We can't create that excess energy. But this is when Qua butts in, saying that she's developing something called the Sorcery Solution System, or SSS. And when she describes it, it's basically a battery that would be able to store magical energy that is emitted by the Sorcerer's Stone through the ley lines. And you would be able to use it like over a longer period of time, because the typical system now is that, you know, it emits energy and it just goes out into nowhere and you lose it. But if you were able to save it in this battery and then use it over a longer period of time, it would make it so you'd have so much more energy to spread around. So Akko and her fairies are clearly in favor of this new machinery, but Professor Finneran, the grumpy one, is like, no, we have to respect the traditions of the Academy. We can't use this newfangled machinery.
I don't get her counter argument.
Me neither. I think she's just a traditionalist, basically.
Jeez.
But yeah, because it would improve things for everybody. But she doesn't seem to trust Kra either. So Kra bumps into Akko in the hallway and tells her to come to her next modern magic class. She's kind of trying to recruit her a little bit, it seems like.
She's ulterior motives.
Yeah. Diana's lackeys bribe this little flame fairy with a little log in order to take just one hot shower. But they get interrupted when there's a small group of fairies find out that like this little flame fairy is breaking the strike. But I think there's more to it than that. They're led by the one with the red eyes and the black skin, and they attack this little flame fairy.
No. They didn't attack him. Like somebody doused him with water, and that's what made them angry.
Oh, okay. But they also hurt him. Like they blame the two girls for hurting the flame fairy. They put it on them. They kind of framed
pretty
them.
much.
And so then the rest of the fairies find out that the flame fairy has been injured, and they start attacking like everybody at the academy. They go nuts. They're pissed off. And so Lotte and like Susie and Akko, they see all this is all happening. They run up to the top of the tower to try to like remove the isolation panel so they can use magic and fight back. And this little red fairy or red-eyed fairy is up there. And Lotte has this ability to sort of like understand what fairies are saying or thinking. And she's just getting nothing from this fairy as if it was a machine. So you can basically figure out at this point that Kwa had created this thing as a little machine, and she's manipulated this whole situation. She's basically using this as her opportunity to prove that her little gadgets can save the academy. So she uses her machines and stuff to like fight off the fairies and stop them from taking over. And then all the teachers are like, oh, wow, this little sorcery system actually works. I guess we should give Kwa what she wants. So she gets her new research lab, and she gets Akko now looks up to her thinking that she's like the cool teacher at the school. And that's where this episode ends, basically. So Kwa is manipulating things behind the scenes in an evil way to get what she wants. And we also got a new ED, which was another really good song, I thought, but also like very minimalistic with the animation and the look, which I wasn't a big fan of, because I like big bombastic animation stuff from Trigger. I don't like them to be like minimalistic and reserved. But yeah.
So it turned out Kwa was the one who made Akko fall from the tower, correct? Yes, steering the whole situation to her favor by saving her and being able to present her idea. But I would like to argue that what Kwa has done by the end of the episode is not, I would say, evil. Maybe wrong, but not evil. She definitely set herself up to be the hero at the end of the day. But basically, I don't know, without seeing the next episode, which I have, she was basically forced to play her hand because the old witch was stuck to her old society, and she just needed to let go and move on. And this was basically the only way she could prove that her way would work. And really, ultimately, in the end, Kwa made it a better world for everybody. And I mean everybody. Not a single person got the short end of the stick in this entire thing. But I am well aware she still has some more motives.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. It's like almost like she's introducing like the internet to the world, and they're like rejecting it at first.
I guess so.
It's good. It's clearly going to make things better for everyone. It's like it's introducing like wireless magical power is what she's doing.
Yeah.
So
but, yeah, like I said, we know she's got ulterior motives. So I'm guessing world domination at the end of the episode, but we kind of find out more in episode 15. Which opens with Professor Kwa giving a lesson on her self-developed technology. Diana seems to be upset or suspicious about the technology. Either of both, I don't know. Then immediately cuts to Diana in the library looking at the past records of the students, and she's looking up Qua specifically.
I have something to say about this. So when she looks at Qua in the textbook, you see like a younger version of Qua with purple hair. This is the one from the OP, the new OP that Diana turns into as she walks past Akko. So it's a little symbolism saying that, hey, Qua and Shiny Chariot were rivals back in the day, if you look at the OP carefully. So you can continue now.
Yeah, but it turns out she was actually a prodigy that could even rival Diana, according to Ursula, who has walked up on her. Diana is curious about Qua and asks Ursula, what do you remember about her and stuff? And, Ursula, she used to be Shiny Chariot, but she can't say that. So she's like, makes up a quick excuse to get the heck out of there. So Diana, being as smart as she is, then, goes to look up Ursula in the records, which we know she's not going to find her. So, yeah. But they didn't revisit that, oddly. So,
yeah, I'm sure it'll come up later at some point.
Maybe so. Maybe Diana's holding all her cards in her hand right now. We're just waiting to play them all. So Akko goes to visit Qua to talk about Shiny Chariot since she found out they were schoolmates. So, her fascination with Shiny Chariot, somebody with information's got to find. Interesting, Akko is surprised that Qua has only good things to say about Chariot, since everybody else really only says bad things about her when she asks about her. Mm-hmm. But then Qua kind of sweet talks her way into getting Akko to bring the shiny rod to her lab. She does that by what? Oh, just some way to find out more about Shiny Chariot, I believe.
Yeah, it's basically just saying that, like, yeah, I want to learn more about Shiny Chariot, so I'm going to analyze this rod in my lab if you bring it to me. Yeah.
So, oops, I scrolled and you wrote 2 pages. No, I found it.
There it is.
Yeah. So, Ursula then goes looking for Akko, who is not in her room, but Lotte says she stopped by to grab her staff and then go meet with Qua. And Ursula is just immediately alarmed and books it straight to Qua's lab. But of course, Akko is already there, and Qua is analyzing the rod with her technology. Qua then explains that it's the strong emotions coming from the witch that activates the rod. So now Qua proceeds to go full bad guy on us by putting Akko asleep and going through all her memories. There's a really cool scene of Ursula fighting her way all the way up this tower. She's forced to go full chariot mode.
Oh, it's so good.
Just to get to the top, and it's just an awesome fight scene. She fights all the way up to the top, and she finally gets to the final door, and then Qua's mechanical vine things come flying out and drag her back in real quick. And then Chariot's like, "Oh, you only did that to test me." And Qua's like, "Oh, you've been getting kind of rusty at it. Thought you would have been worse, but you still got some left on." Chariot also proclaims that she knows Qua is there for the world reconstruction magic, which is once all the 7 words are said for the staff, then I think there's more in the next episode.
Yeah, it's called the Grand Triskelion or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but Qua's pretty clever. She goes, tells her, whatever it is I'm plotting, you're powerless to stop me regardless. Akko then wakes up in Ursula's room, where Ursula begins to explain what's been going on with the rod. Okay, yeah, this is where it's at. Oh man, how do you say this word?
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil's branches 1,000 years ago used to cover the world, in which it had access to an infinite amount of magic. And if nobody knows what it was, think of a giant tree. But its magic eventually declined with time, and the only magic left is what they can pull from the ley lines. It marked the end of the age of great magic, but the original power was sealed away by the 9 great witches, which we were previously introduced to a couple episodes ago. And the only way to break the seal is to recite the 7 words, and with using the staff at the same time. But you can't just recite them. You have to do it by breathing life into the words that Ursula explains. Akko so far has awakened 3 of the words and has 4 more to go. And we also find out Ursula knows all but the last one. So that raises some questions. Why did Chariot fail at the last word?
Yeah, or did she fail, or did she not learn the last word on purpose because she was afraid to use the reconstruction magic? Or I don't know. This is going to be interesting to find out. But I love that we're really digging deep into the lore now. And we're finding out new things every episode. Also, I just want to go back and say that, like, yeah, that sequence where like Ursula throws off her school robe, like her
I see
teacher's
your
robe.
little note here on the end.
She is so hot in that scene. I'm like, oh my god, yes. Like her design is amazing when she changes into Shiny Chariot. It's just so good. And also in that last scene where she's revealing to Akko that like Akko has been like reviving these words by breathing life into them. I just love the orchestral theme in the background, like the very string heavy theme from Little Witch Academia. It always like just is really moving. This show is so great at the big moments.
Yes. Just doing so great now. I mean, this show has found its stride, and it is amazing and just delivering.
Yeah, it's freaking off the charts right now, this past 3 episodes. So can't wait for more. All right, let's move on to Mondays. And we've got
Monday.
Grimoire of Zero. So we got episode 2 to talk about called Witch Hunting. So the Sorcerers of Zero, we learned, were formed by an anonymous individual with the goal of true peace for witch kind. They're fighting back against the witch hunts and using blood oaths to learn about magic. So we finally hear the OP for the first time, and it's really upbeat. I liked it. We learned that Albus's name is just an alias, as the witches all keep their true names secret. And he also tells us that he's always been told that some wonderful guy is the real person who wrote the Grimoire of Zero, not Zero like she said last episode. So they head to Albus's group's hideout, which is near La Tête village, famous for its walnut bread. And they take, I don't know why I wrote that down. I was just like, oh, walnut bread.
Maybe you're really hungry when you're watching this.
I was like, oh, that sounds good. It doesn't even come up again. But anyway, they take a break at a spring along the way, and Albus tells them that Sorena's granddaughter runs the Sorcerers of Zero, and Sorena was an old witch who watched over all of Wenius, which is, I guess, either the region or the world. I don't even know. Albus says Sorena was like very pretty, tall, and had huge boobs. And when he says huge boobs, like, so you know how there's always boob envy in these kind of anime. So like Zero does like a quick motion over her chest, like reaching out, like thinking about her breasts being small, but at least it was quick and it was in the background and she didn't say anything about it. So I was like, okay, at least if you're going to do this stupid trope in anime, get it out of the way fast, make it a background thing, and it's kind of funnier that way.
Yeah, if you'd looked away, you would have missed it entirely.
Yeah, you wouldn't have noticed it at all. It was really quick.
And it doesn't even look like she did all envy. She just kind of looked at it and she's like, I would like bigger boobs, but then I know that comes with back pain. That's exactly. That was like the vibe I got off of her. Like, she's like, I'm cool with whatever.
So, before they leave the spring, Albus finds this little ring in the water, and it's Zero says it's a magical ring, and it might be useful to equip it, she says. So Albus also continues to call mercenary Gramps, and every time he calls him Gramps, he kind of is like wounded his ego, because he's like, I'm not that old, but yeah. So anyway, they move on, they arrive, they go towards the village, and they learn from this passing trader on a cart that the village hates witches, and he's excited to see a beast fall in there since they're such great witch hunters, and he throws them each like a tomato, I think.
I hate tomatoes.
I love tomatoes. I
hate them. Oh, and just on a side tangent, I downloaded there was like the remastered Skyrim for Xbox One, and probably only played 2 hours, but I played like the other Skyrim like a couple hundred hours.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that for no reason in particular.
Well, there's a guy in a cart. Yeah. Also, yeah, we're going to get to that. So they arrive at the village, and one man leads them there to a house where they can stay, and he's like, by the way, I was a mercenary like you once, and then I took an arrow to the knee.
I actually had to pause it because I was like, I want to research it. Because all I have to do is just listen to it and see if like
it's the exact line.
It is, if the Japanese language is actually, if like I can find knee
Oh no, I
arrow
found
in
it.
there.
Oh yeah, somebody translated it on Reddit, and they're like, "No, this is a Skyrim."
Yeah, I didn't know if it
reference.
was that or it was just the translator having a little fun. I was
No.
happy either way. But I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yep, they're just straight up making that Skyrim reference, and it's like, this was funnier in like 2011 or whatever when Skyrim came out. It's like, man, Japan, you're taking a long time to get around to this reference.
Well, it depends on when this was written, I guess.
I guess that's true. I don't know when the original.
That
source
may
was
have been
written.
when that specific episode was written, or was
could
this
be.
was this an adaptation of anything?
Probably. I think it's probably from a manga, or a light novel.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah.
anyways, getting really badly sidetracked.
Well, I mean, the Skyrim reference did really take me out of the episode for a minute, so it's only fair. So they pass by a large graveyard, which the villager says was caused by a witch's raid, which killed like many of the villagers. So they really hate witches. And this witch raid killed like young and old, like babies to the elderly. So it was indiscriminate. So at this point, everything goes wrong when it turns out that the ring that Albus picked up at the spring belongs to this old, like, hag grandmother in the village who's telling everyone that she lost it. And Albus realizes it's probably hers and goes to give it back to her. But then they immediately accuse him of stealing it and also of stealing the tomatoes that they were given.
Yeah, talk about being on edge. Jesus.
Yeah, these villagers are just, like, looking for a chance to
Yeah, they were itching to just for a fight, so to say.
and the old woman does like nothing to help the situation. She could have remembered that she was like washing something by the spring and probably dropped her ring there, but she doesn't seem to be able to get two words out.
She's trying though.
Yeah, she's like, please stop, God, don't, but it doesn't help. Like she's not loud enough or
She could
strong
have.
enough.
She could have yelled. Those guys were still worked up. She could have yelled, "No, I remember dropping it in the stream now," and they would have ignored her entirely.
Yeah. So instead, Albus picks a
Mob
fight.
mentality, I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah, mob mentality or medieval villager mentality. Albus picks a fight with the villagers
I'm the witch.
when they keep saying that
She turned me into a newt. I got better. Sorry, go.
Jesus. The villagers keep saying that this is just like when Serena betrayed them in the past. And Albus, who knows Serena's daughter, or is it granddaughter? A daughter, stands up for her, saying that she quelled the plagues and that the villagers are talking about, and that they're wrong, and that they just blame every bad thing that happens on the witches. And then the villagers are like, oh, you're a witch. And that's when they're like over the edge and they attack. And the mercenary throws like the two kids, like Zero and Albus, over his shoulders and runs out of town. But the villagers say, okay, the witch hunt is on. So the mercenary scolds Albus, telling him his witches murdered like an entire village for this one woman's death. So he's not exactly the righteous person he thinks he is in this situation. And Zero agrees. She says, just unjustified killing just justifies the killing of more witches. So they run and stop at this cabin in the woods to rest for a bit. But, and so, while they're resting, Zero says that she tells Mercenary that, she would be really lonely if she didn't have him to talk with. She's like already realized that. I felt this was like a little early for her to be saying this because like they've only known each other for like 3 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say like in the anime world, like the couple days.
Yeah.
Then.
So yeah, I thought that was like a little bit of like a little maybe waifu bait building. I don't know. But anyway, Zero tells the mercenary that it's very unlikely that Serena caused the plagues because she was a mooncaller witch who traded her sorcery with villagers for food and clothing. It was a symbiotic relationship, so her hurting the villagers would make no sense.
It would hurt her in the process, so yeah, there's no point.
And she assumes that she was probably just caught doing sorcery in the wrong place at the wrong time when the plagues were breaking out. And so they jumped to conclusions, just like they jumped to conclusions about Albus. So the villagers at that point catch up to them in the village, and they know the forest much better. So they basically surround them. They have them trapped. But the old grandmother from before who couldn't speak up, turns out she's a witch. She's been hiding her powers, but she was able to use some of Mercenary's fur to track them and find them in the forest. And she shows them a secret path to get out and explains that Serena in the past had given her and her husband the magical ring. And since she reminded Serena of her daughter, who went against Serena's wishes by marrying a human man and living her life in hiding. So she gives the ring So she gets the ring back from Albus, but like she explains basically that like she sees in them like what Serena used to see in her, and shows them off on their way. And that's where the episode ends. So it was kind of nice that she redeemed herself in the end by helping them.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
also,
I mean, I wouldn't say it was her fault. She may be part of the cause that they got in that trouble, but
yeah. And it also explains why she was quiet, because like she is a witch and she doesn't want to cause too much trouble, I guess.
Right, because they would immediately kill her.
Yeah.
And burn her at the stake. So yeah, I don't blame you for being quiet either.
Exactly.
All right. Let's leave Tuesday and move on to Wednesdays with Sakura Quest. Episode 3. We start off with Yoshino in the back of a pink convertible for a parade. And it's like only them and like nobody showed up. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
It just shows how like backwater this town is. So we go back to the cabin, and a delivery truck shows up to drop off Yoshino's stuff from Tokyo. Turns out she's decided to give the job a try, and I'm very glad to resolve this issue early on, because I know there would be points I'm like, why is she still even trying? But yeah. I guess, yeah, so now she's going to do it. So now she's way more focused on bringing back tourism to the town. The next day, Yoshino is being interviewed as the queen when the interviewer starts asking questions that were unscripted. It doesn't go well because Yoshino has a severe lack of knowledge about the town. She she's only been there like a week now or something, so she barely knows even more in-depth stuff. So, but it does a pretty good job of prompting Yoshino after the interview to go around town and ask the locals what it is they love about their town, which is basically nothing from what I gathered. Yep. And just a bunch of old people who can't hear. Yep. She eventually talks to a shop owner who says that they're getting by fine without the tourism and they don't want change. They're totally happy with the way they are. So, they don't, no change. I mean, man, there is totally a thing about older people not liking change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's totally a thing. So, but he does suggest that they talk to the head of the board of merchants, who turns out to be Ruruko's grandma, and she hates old guy's name. Forgot.
Kadota. Yeah.
Kadota. It's really funny where she's like, she tells him to come back yesterday, and Yoshino's like, that's not possible. So they go back to the restaurant, and they end up running into the bus driver guy who, during their little conversation, since they found that he used to be the prince at one time. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And also that the only person who would be able to change this rundown old town are the youth, fools, and outsiders, thus making Yoshino the perfect candidate.
Since she's all three.
Yeah, she's all three. And like she tries to put off on somebody else, and like he tries to put it off on Glasses Chick, and she's like, yeah, but I'm not a fool. So we skip to Yoshino and Kabuto at a mascot festival contest. Earlier on, we saw that the head kind of got shoved into the trash can by accident off the table, and so they have lost the head for the Chupacabra costume, and everybody's in a panic to find it. And then there's a little scene that I can't tell if Ruruko's grandma suggests they use the Cabra Kid costume instead, or unintentionally gives Ruruko the idea. Like, I rewatched it like 3 times, and I can't tell what her intentions were.
I think her intentions are that she knows that Kadota would hate this, and since she's like always fighting with him, she wants to replace the Chupacabra costume with the old Cabra Kid, and that would probably piss him off. So that's probably her motivation.
Yeah, the Cabra Kid. Yeah, but it also saves his butt at the same time. So I don't know. There's this strange hate relationship, but it looks like there's love in there somewhere. I'm not
somewhere,
sure. Yeah. But after much searching by all the girls, they finally find it, and they get to the festival barely on time. But the other guys also found the mask too. And in a scene that is lost to me, they debate what one to use. Like, it was just kind of pointless. Like, the other one had garbage all over it, and the Kabuto kid was like really tore up. Then Yoshino gives like this really boring speech. The episode got just strange on me here.
Well, so, it was supposed to be meaningful. She was saying that like used to be the Cabra Kid, and now we became.
She was trying, but then they're like showing scenes of like little kids like getting really bored in the middle of the speech.
She was trying to say like what's good about the town, but she still doesn't really understand it.
So later on, later on that night, the girls are all sitting under the cherry blossoms drinking beer, except Ryuko. She doesn't like beer. When Kabuto shows up with snacks, and Yoshino makes a request that all the girls be hired to work as her committee. It was a really good end to the episode and really good progression in the story. Then I found out this show's going to be 25 episodes.
You knew this already, but I guess you remembered.
I must have remembered or something or whatnot, but I suddenly got really worried.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just worried because of the setting, and it is a lot to expect them to get 25 episodes out of this, because what does that mean? They're just going to fail over and over and over again, or what? Yeah, it's true. Are they
actually going to be slightly successful every episode? I don't know.
Is she going to go back to the city at some point? Like, I mean, there's a lot of places they could go with it. But it is, 25 episodes is a lot for a rural setting anime. We'll see how they carry it out. It could get quite boring in the middle. We'll see. I don't know.
All right, let's move on to Bcom's favorite show,
which Leo wishes was 50 episodes long.
Busou Shoujo Machiavellianism. I sent you a message and said, I know I should not be enjoying this show, but I do. And I would like to start this episode off by saying drill hair for life.
God, I hate drill hair so much. It's not that I hate all drill hair. It's just like this one girl, Choka's drill hair, is so ridiculously like oversized. I'm just like, please, come on. This is like 1987.
She has two of them. Like each one is bigger than her entire body.
All right, take it away.
So we start off with Choka looking for Mary and just finds her eating dinner. Mary says she has to have a proper meal before she goes after her prey tomorrow, which is Nomura. And then as you cleverly named Mr. Big Head. What was the rest of the thing?
Oh, yeah. What is it? Big Head Mick Stupid Face. I don't know. Something
Mick
like
Makeup
that.
Face or
Mick
something?
Makeup Face. Yeah, because he has the stupid cross-dressing makeup on, yeah.
Well, so do all the guys do.
I know, but like this one pretty particular has like the giant head also. Like they did this in the spin-off anime to Barakamon as well. Like they had that one character with the giant head for comedic value. I don't know. It just takes me out of the episode, honestly.
So anyways, Mr. Big Head is explaining to Nomura that he shouldn't be so carefree because in the last fight he made one of the 5 swords pets cry, which was Choka. And that Mary is... going to kick his ass, basically. In their conversation, it's also brought up that somebody else has also beaten the 5 swords, which we knew, and she was referred to as the Empress. Also, for some strange reason, the Empress's technique reminds him of a battle in the past that he fought and lost to someone with similar techniques. As the viewer, we are well aware the Empress and that person is the same person. It's blatantly obvious. But then Rin shows up early to Nomura's dorm to escort him to class. Stupid shot of Nomura leaving his underwear behind.
Well, I thought that was the only good shot in the episode because it was actually foreshadowing, but that's
gosh. And then she like checks his bag and whatnot for contraband or whatever. But then Mary shows up just before they're about to leave and proclaims more than supervising him should be done to him. He should be punished in another way. Ren tells Nomaru to go ahead and proceeds to battle with Mary. Oh, Choco is there also. Forgot that part. How could I miss that drill hair? Choco then runs off to chase down Nomura while the other two are battling. Nomura, you clearly see where this is heading, uses his belt to stop Choco's whip, and everybody out there can guess exactly what happens next. Mm-hmm. But I totally laughed my ass off when Choka foamed at the mouth and passed out because she saw his dick. She was like, like it foamed up. And it killed me. It just killed me.
She's like out for the rest of the episode.
Oh yeah, she's just like mumbling at different points. Yeah, it's pretty good. But it turns out the Empress was standing on the steps of the building that they're in front of. She's seen the whole thing, and Nomura is confronting her about being that guy that beat him up before, because we remember before he was in a fight with like 40 plus people and everybody was beaten. He had beaten everybody, but he was the worst beat up. But very quickly they get interrupted by Mary, who has beaten Rin, who hadn't fully recovered from her kiss and / being sick last time. We get this little scene of the Empress in the auditorium, and she's remembering her version of their fight. She's basically, dressing up as a male is what it was. And then she questions herself of why she didn't finish him off before. Basically, she thinks she might have fallen for him, but in the end, she's like, no. I'm just like, all right. And I think that's because he would not submit to her no matter what. So that's why I'm assuming she likes him.
Yeah.
But then after a intense fight with Mary, where Nomer is just getting their crap beat out and there should just be blood everywhere, he manages to win with the aid of a manga that he had hidden, not on his bag, but on his body. And I put a note, I'm going to let Bcom handle explanation of how Mary reacts to her loss.
So it's just like all the other girls. Like, so she loses and then she gets like all horny basically. And she's like, eventually after kicking his ass with the rapier for a while, she loses and she feels it would be humiliating if she didn't get sexually assaulted like the girls before her. She's like, why aren't you taking advantage of me like the other girls? Like, am I not charming enough to get sexually assaulted by you?
Like, she
so disappointed.
Burst her shirt open and it's like showing her boobs.
Yeah, she's like trying to put moves on him so he'll take advantage of her, and he's like, oh, I don't want to do it if I'm like prompted to do it. It's like he's like, I only enjoy rape when I'm doing it. It's like that's what he's basically saying. It's like, come on.
Basically, but of course, Rin stumbles upon them with Mary's breasts exposed and shenanigans scene, and then he gets his stamp though in the end, and that's all that matters.
He did get a stamp, yeah. This show, man, it is crazy.
I don't know. I think I just enjoy it for the dumbness, and it's not shy about it. And I'm just like, all right, they're gonna do it.
It's not bad as far as dumb shows go. I could do without like every fight ending up in sexual harassment, though. Every single one.
That one's a little pushing it, but
let's move on because I got one of my favorites coming up. Thursdays, Tsuki ga Kirei.
Oh, before you start this, yeah. I did not see episode 1 and 2 when you first reviewed this. I have those seen all the way up to episode 3 now. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching episode 1 and she brought out her little squishy thing, mm-hmm. You had described it as a potato.
So she calls it that in episode 2, but it's like a turnip or something. Yeah.
Episode 1, they do not call it a potato thing. So as soon as I saw it, I went, what the hell is Bcom's version of a potato? I was like, that is not a potato. I'm going to have to bring this up.
It is a weird translation because it doesn't look anything like a potato to me either.
And then in episode 2, they called it like a potato mascot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that is not a potato.
I don't know
what that is, but it is not a potato.
Yeah, it's got to be some Japanese vegetable, and the translator is like, oh, stupid Americans won't know what it is, so let's just call it a potato. Which I don't get. I never understand that in translations. It's like, we have Google these days. Like, if you say what it is, we can Google the word in 2 seconds and find out exactly what it means.
No, but it was just so funny to me because I literally made a mental note of, what the fuck is wrong with Bcom? It's not a potato.
Haven't seen a potato in many years.
Apparently. But then it turned out the show calls it a potato eventually. But yeah, go ahead, move on.
All right, so this episode 3, Howling at the Moon, starts off with the students who are finishing up their day 1 of midterm exams. And so Kotaro didn't do too well, but his friends sort of cheer him up by putting him into a headlock. But he did submit one of his stories to a publishing competition in the newcomers category. But he's a little disappointed he didn't get selected for an award this time, but at least he's putting himself out there now. So he's depressed and is having trouble studying for an exam. So he texts Akane, who instantly cheers him up. He kind of vents to her a little bit vaguely about his trouble with his club. And she tells him that she has the same kind of club problems. And he asks her what she does when she just can't make things work. And she hits him back with the "I think you're fine the way you are" line, which he told her at the end of episode 2. And so I like how the show diffuses any romantic tension with a line sticker after that she sends him that has like this guy that's saying the secret to good shiatsu is a mother's touch, which kind of cracks like Kotaro up. He's like, what the heck is this? And that's something a middle schooler would do to diffuse the romantic tension of what they just said. So after the second day of midterms, also, by the way, I want that line sticker like right now. It's amazing. But after the second day of midterms, Akane heads to track practice, and her friend Shinatsu calls out to Kotaro. She's the one who patched him up during the sports festival. And she tells Akane that since she said he was cool, they're friends now. So there's a little bit of a love triangle maybe starting up here. During track practice, the girls talk about how everyone is hooking up before the school trip after midterms. And Akane's friends keep pressuring her to go out with Hira, the track guy. But she's obviously taken more of an interest in Kotaro. Kotaro says that the literature club has a superstition that if you pick a book from the library at random, it will give you the perfect life advice for your situation. And he picks up a book and opens it and tells him to not leave romance to chance, but act on your own volition, which is a little on the nose. But leaving school, he overhears Akane's friends gossiping about Hira and Akane and how Hira might ask her out after the track meet, so he's getting worried. Akane's family asks her if she's decided what high school she wants to go to at the dinner table, and her sister tells her just to go to the school that she went to, but Akane thinks it's too far away. Their family used to live in Tokyo, we find out, but moved for their dad's job. And Shinatsu is out running and flashes back to have a split-second worse time. So she got a split-second worse time than Akane in their previous race. So Shinatsu views Akane as her rival, and she's clearly trying to catch up to her time and become the star of the track team too.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we see her working hard towards that. Kotaro tells Akane that he's going to pray at the shrine for good luck for her during her track meet. He has to be there because he's got this like neighborhood association stuff that he has to practice for. He's dying to ask her if there's like a guy that she likes, but he just can't bring himself to do it. He writes out the text and then erases it, thinking better of it. And then we later see Hira approach Akane before the track meet, and he tells her that he hopes she beats her personal record, and he encourages her. And he acts like he's about to ask her something more, but he loses his nerve and walks away just before he does it.
Like he was going to say it, but then somebody cheered right behind him.
Exactly.
It kind of broke the moment.
Typical thing that breaks up the confession. So Kotaro is praying at the shrine. He uses a 500 yen coin. He's pulling out the big bucks.
As you do with the girls you like.
Oh, yeah. And Akane gets set for her race as her parents cheer her on from the stands. I like her dad who's like filming the whole thing and like yelling his ass off. And we cut back to Kotaro, who's watching like these people drum on tires at the Shrine Association thing, and he's like miserable and he's dying to hear from Akane, but no text is coming.
Yeah, I think they're practicing for something to do with the shrine.
Yeah, just like a festival they're putting on.
Yeah.
So Akane, it turns out, like after the track meet, kind of got distracted and hasn't been able to text on her phone. She went to get like fast food with the team, and then when she was about to send Kotaro a message, finally her phone dies. Well, you get a back and forth between the two where they're both like waiting for the first message from the other one, and then her phone dies when she does finally get the nerve and doesn't get to. So Kotaro's depressed because he didn't get a response from her, so he feels like all the prayer and stuff he did was for nothing. But then as he's about to finally leave the shrine, Akane shows up in person. And they head to like this quiet area and sit silently for a couple seconds before Akane says that she thinks it's cool that Kotaro is going to be part of this march for the Kawagoe festival. That's the festival they're preparing for. And then he finally finds out that she set a new personal best at her track meet. So that's good news. And she also tells him how her phone died, so he understands. And like a few moments quietly pass. They're terrible at talking to each other. They're like so emotionally awkward.
I will say, watching this show, as I'm sitting here and I'm fidgeting, which means I can barely pay attention. It's not holding my attention. I get why they did it. It's like a dramatic effect, but drama not being one of my very liked dramas, I couldn't kill it. So like I watched the first two at work today. I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, I'm picking up parts and looking at them, putting them back down and looking back at the screen. I'm like, what am I doing? So when I got home and I watched episode 3, Chio jumped on my lap and she got the best kitty massage of her life. I'll just say that.
So I'm like almost the exact opposite, because like I'm hanging on like every little thing, because this show for me transports me right back to middle school, because I had a group of friends that were just like this, and I had crushes on the friends and everybody had crushes on each other, and we all were socially awkward like this, and it was just exactly like this. So like this stuff just like transports me back to a different time in my life.
I had a totally different high school experience. I mean middle school, bleh.
Yeah. So basically Kotaro sits for a second, and then he's looking at this water at the shrine, and he sees like the moon reflected in the water, and we're about to get a title drop because he's like, who was it that translated "I love you" as "Isn't the moon beautiful tonight?" And that's what Tsuki ga Kirei means. And Kotaro sees Akane's hand blow in the wind, and sees her hair blowing in the wind, and their eyes meet, and they're a little bit embarrassed that their eyes are finally meeting, and he manages to say the word Tsuki. He manages to get that out, which she hears as moon, but also sounds a lot like ski. I like you, and she takes it as a moon being beautiful. Though she's like, yeah, the moon is very beautiful. But then he finally works up the courage and says "Sukiate," which means "Would you go out with me?" And fade to credits.
He's got some balls, kid.
We got a freaking confession in the 3rd episode of a middle school anime romance. This is almost unprecedented. This is ridiculous. John Madden would be losing his shit right now if he was commentating on this anime. So anyway, I'm excited that we're getting progress, and we'll see what happens in episode 4 next week. But yeah, let's move on to Fridays. Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul.
Woo! This one I do love.
Episode 3. It's called Close Encounter. So yeah, the angels have noticed the surge in power from Muguro using his ability to save Azazel at the end of last episode. So they want him back to regain the confidence that men have lost in the world of the gods, basically. Azazel is meanwhile getting patched up by Rita and wonders how he's still alive. He vaguely remembers Muguro helping him. Nina has been challenging a bunch of burly workers to arm wrestling, which is really funny. And she's defeated like 15 dudes in a row so far because, you know, look, she's a dragon, so she's super strong. She's winning like 100 rupees a piece. They kind of look like 100 yen coins. And a purple-haired angel visits Bacchus, who is watching as Nina and Hamza like grift the workers and like make money off them, and asks if he's seen or heard of Muguro.
It's the angel from that first scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says that Lord Gabriel will allow Bacchus back into heaven after being exiled for all these years if he finds the child. So then the crowd is starting to get tired of losing to Nina, so Hamza calls out to one guy who's wearing like a head towel and goggle-like glasses, kind of disguising.
Yeah, you wrote that, and then I watched the episode, and they're just regular glasses.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay, because
they like wrap around his head.
Because in my notes, I put the guy with, and then I underlined not goggled glasses.
I don't know. I guess listeners, you have to break this tie. You have to tell us which one of us is right about the glasses.
Send us a tweet.
Yeah, he has like no money, so he offers this ring instead. And Hamza looks at it, and she's like, "Okay, fine." Nina puts a blindfold on because she got like one look at this guy and saw he was like ridiculously gorgeous looking.
Well, even the duck Hamza, he's like, "Oh shit, he's really good looking. You have to wear the blindfold."
So yeah, they start arm wrestling, and she can sense immediately that something's different as soon as they lock grip. Like they go back and forth, and like
he has like a gentle touch, is what it is.
Yeah, but it's also
I don't think she knows it's something different. I believe it's because she knows he is hot.
Oh, that could be it.
She likes his touch.
Oh, okay,
that's what I got from it.
Oh, well, in any case, like he does have power that matches hers. It seems like
I don't know if it was that or it's because she's got her flustered. Because then later on, for example, she looks at her hand and blushes. So like it's really messing with her.
Okay, yeah, that could be it. I didn't read the scene that way, but that could totally be another explanation for why.
That's why I believe it was.
So she eventually works up enough power and like throws him away from the table in one final like heave of arm wrestling. She takes her blindfold off, and he asks who she is, and he gets pretty close to her face, and she starts to fucking lose it because she's so damn horny. But he walks away before she loses her composure, and still, though, just like thinking about holding hands with him like makes her freak out and run back into the carriage and quit arm wrestling for the rest of the day. In response to the rag demon's actions, Lord Chariot decides to slaughter more demons to force him to reveal himself. Kaiser objects, saying that indiscriminately killing demons or gods will cause them to rise against mankind, like they already are starting to. And Chariot tells him to watch his mouth because defending demons will raise suspicions, blah, blah, blah.
So I would like to note, since this scene immediately follows the last scene,
Yes.
that guy was Charios.
Yeah, it seems
It was
very
the
clear.
same hair, same eyes, and then they bring up the ring being a royal ring later on. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the show is trying to make the viewer think they figured it out. They're smart. They figured it out. But I thought it was just like so obvious. I'm like, you could have like shown a scene of him back at the castle taking off the costume.
The only other explanation would be that Lord Charios has a twin brother or something.
I guess.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, it seems like he was undercover trying to figure out what's up with Nina, basically.
Which is so weird because I was just reading a book about a king doing that.
I think it's a normal trope. King undercover. Undercover boss.
Just go move on.
So Rocky, who is Rita's third-hand assistant, is massaging Nina's arm after a long day of arm wrestling, and Nina looks at the ring that she got from this strange man, and yeah, Hamza says it bears the royal emblem, so it can't possibly be real, but obviously it is real.
Yeah, we know it is.
She can barely look at the ring without being hot and bothered by it again. And then Bacchus tells her if she's like 10 years too young to be obsessed with boys. But anyway, they apparently spent half of the arm wrestling earnings on food, and Nina eats as much as 5 people. So it makes sense. And so, yeah, it turns out Nina's teacher was the one who told her to find Bacchus when she got to the capital. And her teacher was a bounty hunter as well. And her teacher gave her a bounty hunter bracer, but Bacchus points out it's a fake, as only a god can wear one. Per Reddit, this was a little mistranslation.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't right because I'm like, that wasn't the way it was in the first season.
Yeah, Bacchus, what he really said was only a god can grant you a bounty hunter bracelet, so that's why he says it's fake. But so Rita complains that her teacher doesn't sound very trustworthy, to which Nina replies, yeah, Favreau wasn't very trustworthy. And there you go. We got Favreau reveal. So Favreau is Nina's teacher.
All the reactions kill me. And just like Kaiser Roll, I've always called him Fava Bean.
Fava Bean?
I don't know why. I wasn't having discussions with anybody about that show. It just, for whatever reason, when I watched the first season, I was like, well, that's Kaiser Roll and that's Fava Bean.
Well, in the first season, there was a couple times where people called him Fava. So that makes sense that you would
That's
connect
probably
that.
where I picked it up. And then just immediately as I heard Kaiser, I was like, Kaiser Roll? Nope. Oh, this is a guy. That's his name. So yeah, we got our food duo, Kaiser Roll and Fava Bean. Can't wait for them to team back up.
So after they get over their surprise, Rita tells Nina that there's one person in the capital who knows more about Favreau than anybody. And it's, Kaiser Roll. So, and he just happens to be running up to them. And Rita also mentions that, hey, Kaiser is Rocky's father. So Rocky, the cut off hand, is Kaiser's severed hand from the end of last season. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, so Nina apologizes for the chase the other night where she knocked out Kaiser before escaping. And Kaiser is frantically asking Rita where Azazel might be because he thinks he's in huge trouble and Chariot is going to finally just kill him this time. Nina runs off at top speed to go try and save Azazel because, he kind of earned her respect in the last couple episodes. And Kaiser is following close behind. Chariot threatens to behead some demons one by one if the rag demon doesn't show himself. But just before he does, Azazel reveals himself like atop this broken tower, silhouetted by like a red blood moon. And at the end of the episode, he like dives down into the square, and that's where it cuts. So that's the end of the episode. So yeah, I'm still loving this show. I'm getting so excited for when Favreau comes back now. Oh my god, I can't wait.
You and a bunch of others really liked him. I didn't really care for him.
I can see how he's abrasive. Like I don't know. I thought he was like the right mix of asshole is the best way to say it. Like he never got too much on my nerves, and by the end of this first season, I was just like totally bought into his character. Because while he's an ass and he's a lazy and he's a glutton, like he also has a heart of gold. Yeah,
and at first I didn't like Kaiser because he was a haughty, pretty boy. Yeah, but then he got a lot better after that.
He got a lot better, as the season went on. So anyway, that's Rage of Bahamut.
Do Saturdays.
Yes, and Recreators. So, first of all, the OP is fucking hype, I have to say. It's sung by these two, I've never heard of them, TL and Jemmy, who I haven't heard of them, but it has that Hiroyuki Sawano sound and gets me pumped up every time. So we learned that Meteora Osterreich is Meteora's full name, and she's a librarian at the Library of 1,000 Miles. This is like her crazy light novel background. She's like the short one with like the little light purple silvery hair.
Yeah.
So Sota remembers her from A Vulcan, which is a game that he's played. So yeah, Silesia and Meteora are planning to use Sota's bedroom as their initial base in searching for their creators. And they say they'll barter with Sota, they'll like do his homework or help him with errands, but he's like, no, you don't need to do that, but can you please like clean up like the broken glass and the mess you've made out of my room? So yeah, after that, they head to McDonald's, which like is McDonald's with a Y, which is a weird spelling for a fake McDonald's.
I've seen better versions of this.
Yeah. And Meteora mentions that the information in the real world is much more multi-layered than in her universe, which makes sense because, writers can't create a world as multifaceted as reality. She also tells them that the villain they met previously told her that if they knew of the real world, the characters from the story worlds would be scared and resentful. And she wants to get the creators to like remake their worlds, basically, is the goal.
Which is an interesting dilemma because then none of our entertainment would be good.
I agree. It would all just be like what peaceful. The characters want. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, are we going to be selfish and screw with their lives or what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting moral dilemma, yeah. So Silesia agrees that she has a few criticisms of her own world as well that she'd love to tell her creator. While all of this exposition is going on, they're talking about stuff, there's like this absolutely gorgeous background art being shown. Like there's these murals on the walls as they walk around Tokyo. There's like a public zoo with animals, like a shrine that they walk by. All like incredibly well drawn background art. It's really well detailed. It's constantly impressive. So Sato doesn't recognize the villain girl who's been attacking them from any stories that he knows. But she did seem to know about him, which leads me to believe that she is like his sister's creation. And I'm still thinking that his sister is the one who committed suicide at the beginning of the first episode. That's my guess at the big reveal. But
really?
Yeah.
There's just too many things unanswered, and there's not enough things to make connections with yet.
So back at home, Sato Googles the creators of Meteora and Silesia's like light novels and games. And Silesia is a little uncomfortable and asks Sato how he'd feel if he was put on display like 24/7 without knowing. Because she's like looking at this website where she's being put on display, and it's like, well, imagine the dojins that are created of you, Silesia. Like, I think you'd be even more uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. That would be horrible.
They decide to email the author of the light novel that Silesia's anime came from. His name is Takashi Matsubara, and he agrees to meet them in public. So when he sees Silesia, he thinks it's like some foreign cosplayer.
For once, it would almost sound unreasonable that somebody would meet you in public, but in his email, he sent a picture of Silesia.
Yes.
And that's what blew him away, which then I'm convinced that the creator would meet you because they'd be like, oh my God, this cosplayer is just
banging
beyond my imagination. It's dead on. Holy.
Yeah. And so like he sees her and she's like, wow, are you a foreign cosplayer? And he's like, really attracted to her, obviously, but after a little bit of talking and chat, she's being nice. She gets annoyed and tells him, you know what, I'm actually real. And before he can react, a bunch of kids get excited because a girl named Magical Slayer Mamika is appearing. Her name is Mamika Kirameki, and she came to try to convince Silesia and Meteora that they need to force their creators to help save the people who are in trouble in their own worlds. So she's another girl who's been trapped in this world. She has a very idealistic and naive point of view because she's like a little magical girl. And Silesia is trying to explain to her that it's not that simple, but the girl like just starts to freak out when she can't get her way. So magical girl transforms, and she and Silesia like burst out the window of this skyscraper and
another
start
window
battling.
down.
Yeah, another window down. Yeah, exactly. Like the window count is growing in this anime.
And And an unknown amount is destroyed during their battle.
Yeah, like they start like battling over the city, and Mamika like is smashing everything up, and
there's a constant scenes of like the side of the building getting destroyed. Exploded. So like I swear they're intentionally killing windows.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's a metaphor because it's a window into another world.
Oh, I think you're onto something. So
I'm so smart.
The battle comes to like a stop when Mamika sort of realizes that she's actually hurt Silesia, and like she's even bleeding, and she says in like a frightened voice like, "That's weird. Usually there's no blood when I fight." And like she looks around and like the whole public square is destroyed and buildings are falling apart, and she's like, in her little magical girl story, this stuff never happens. Like she just uses her power and everybody smiles and like goes back to being nice and stuff. But Silesia is like yelling at her that like, yeah, your story is probably filled with reasonable people, but my world is more like this one, and I feel the pain just like I do in my own world. And she knows if you use force to serve justice, no one is going to follow her idealistic scenario. So Mamika's frightened and she's really confused by all this, and she uses her ultimate attack called Magical Splash, which shoots a giant heart out at Silesia. But just in the nick of time, this mysterious purple-haired Bishonen guy gets in the way of the blast, and he calls himself the Sacred Tree Kurinagimaru. And he has a companion that's like a persona.
I thought stand at first.
Or a stand, yeah.
They're both this very similar, basically same thing.
And he warns Mamika that he was the final boss of his old world, so she shouldn't mess with him. So Sota and Matsubara recognize this guy as Yuya Mirakuji, who is the main rival in the game Exclusive Underground or something. And so that's where the episode ends. So just introducing another new character. So I really liked the scene with the magical girl. Like I thought that was a really cool idea, and I see it as I feel like this whole anime can serve as a really good parody of typical light novel tropes, and like bringing those tropes into the real world and exposing them for how ridiculous they are.
Yeah, because their worlds have different rules than ours.
Exactly. So yeah. That was exciting. I liked that episode a lot.
It was very, very cool the way they did that. I will have to agree with you 100%.
So let's move on. So we got a lot of shows on Saturday, actually two more. So we got
two.
My Hero Academia Season 2, Episode 16.
So like we established before, I had read the manga, but I hadn't seen any of the first season. So I just skipped straight to Episode 16. I know the story. That's one part. And so I will say I love the way it is animated. I think they really get like the emotional scenes that were in the manga. They really do it very well, animated wise. All the characters, they act and do the things exactly as I thought they did in the manga. Overall, I think it's a really great job that they're doing it. And oddly enough, even something that I had seen before and I knew exactly what's going to happen, I still kind of got caught up in some of the moments.
Yeah.
When you get to them, I'll bring them up. But yeah, this is something I knew was going to happen, and I was still more interested in this than Tsuki ga Kirei. I mean, that's just...
Oh, yeah.
And I recognize that Tsuki ga Kirei is good, but it's just not my thing. So, yeah. But anyways.
Well, yeah, we'll see as that series goes on. It might start to grab you a little bit more, but we'll see. It may just not be your kind of show also, but I love it.
And I'm just trying to wrap my head around middle school kids' minds, and it's not going good. I gotta, if I forget that they're middle schoolers, it gets a lot better.
Okay, yeah. So, episode 16, In Their Own Quirky Ways. So, at the end of the last episode, Todoroki was the first student to make it through, like, the robots in this obstacle course. One of the other students, Kirishima, was trapped under the ice, but he breaks out of it screaming, like, I'd die, and then he only survived because he has his, like, hardening quirk. And then we meet another student from Class B, whose name is Tetsu, who was also trapped, but breaks out using his steel quirk. And the joke is that these guys are like exactly the same.
And the other guys tore up. He's like, I can barely stand out as it is. This other guy's the same ability, basically.
I looked at the Tetsu's name because I was like, what the hell is this? And it's actually made from the kanji for iron, clear, pierce, and another archaic kanji meaning iron. So he's basically just, like Iron Man or something like.
Yeah, and the announcer both announced them both the same way, as that they both can be a spiel or a spear or a shield, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah. So Bakugo makes it past the robot next with 2 other students. A student named Hanta Sera, who has his quirk called Tape. He kind of just tapes himself onto Bakugo. And then Fumikage Tokoyami, who is this like black bird-headed character, who has a quirk called the Dark Shadow, that he uses to like block damage from himself. So yeah, the Class A students are doing really well, and it's because they aren't standing around indecisively, basically, is what the narrators are saying. And after the villains attacked, they had fear put into their hearts and like have learned from that experience. So they're moving really fast. Deku is finally able to get by a robot without using his all-for-one power by taking a piece of armor knocked off by another student and using it as like bait for the robot attacking him to track. And so he uses the robot's own momentum against it, like causing it to destroy itself, basically. Yao Yoruzu, that like cute girl, launches a cannon at the rest of the robots and blows them up, allowing all the other students to pass.
She's my favorite.
She's cute. And Minetta's favorite, too.
Cute. She's beautiful, bud. Let's get this straight.
The second barrier, the waifu wars begin. The second barrier in the race is the fall, which is a bottomless pit that has a lot of like rock platforms jutting up out of it and like thin wires or ropes connecting them. Suyu like sees this and uses her frog quirk to like get past it super easily, like immediately. Then we meet this girl from the support class
who is bonkers, totally nuts.
I think the fandom kind of calls her Gadget Girl or something.
Okay.
She uses like a harpoon and a tow cable system that she made as part of her uniform. And she's basically just showing off her gadgets to all these big companies because she wants them to buy them. So that's like her whole idea for being in this event. And so she like uses it to like jump and leap over like all of the platforms. But still like Todoroki and Bakugo are out in front after this. And like everybody else is like a little bit behind.
Yeah, just a quick note. Bakugo is using his explosions to basically fly, which is kind of a neat idea.
Yeah, he's like blasting himself forward, basically. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Todoroki is like freezing like the ropes and like skating over them and stuff. And yeah. The final barrier is a non-lethal minefield. So Todoroki realizes it's an obstacle designed to put the leaders at a disadvantage because they don't know where the mines are and they have to make it through first. So Bakugo, who just doesn't give a shit, catches up to Todoroki because he just doesn't have any like preconceptions and he doesn't care if he gets blown up. And they start like sort of like knocking each other back and forth. They're both in first place as they make their way through the field. So this is when Deku finally arrives at the minefield. He's way behind. So he's like, I got to do something or else I'm going to lose this race. So he uses the piece of armor that he's been carrying around as a shield. He starts digging up like a whole bunch of the landmines and making a huge pile out of them. Somehow he doesn't trigger the landmines by digging them up. I don't know how he knew how to do this. Like, when did Deku learn how to do this? But
yeah. So as what little I know about landmines, I know that they are in a permanently triggered state once they are buried.
Yeah. And he just so like throws them on top of each other. Like,
yeah, and like literally the only way that they dearm mines is to, for mostly usually just literally blow them up.
Yeah. So anyway, his plan is straight out of the Legend of Zelda cartoon. If you've ever seen this...
Dude, it's a classic move. Everybody does it. Don't you know this?
I guess so. Yeah. So he's gonna like shield.
I was late for work one day. This is what I did.
He's gonna use the explosion from the landmines to blow his shield, like to like use the shield to shield himself from the landmine explosion, but like propel himself forward. So he does this. He jumps on the landmines, and it blows him like way up into the air and way over everybody up to the front of the pack. And so yeah, he gets in front. But like he sees that Todoroki and Bakugo are starting to catch up to him as he starts to lose velocity in midair. So he pulls this like ridiculous somersault move where he like somersaults as he lands and slams his shield down into the ground, causing another mine explosion, which like propels him even faster and further forward. And so yeah, he's now up in the front of the pack and he runs into the stadium first and wins. He looks up to like All Might in the stands and he like clenches his fist like shonen style And he starts crying because Deku always cries.
And All Might's like super excited. He's like, that was better than I even expected.
And so, yeah, the students from the business course try to figure out how they would market Deku since he hasn't shown his quirk yet. And they're like, well, his appearance is out of the question. He doesn't look good. And Deku realizes he was more lucky than good after Ochako starts like praising him for finishing first. And the rest of the students make their way in with it was funny. Mineta like hitched a ride on Yaoyorzu's back with his sticky balls, and he's like, I killed 2 birds with 1 stone, because like he's such a perv, like he loves her so much,
and she is so disgusted by it.
He's like, you are the freaking worst. Oh man. So midnight, the like referee announces the second event at the end of the episode, which is going to be a cavalry battle where the participants can form teams of 2 to 4 people, however they wish. However, based on how they finished in the first event, the students have a point value now. So if you take out teams with higher ranked players, they're worth more points. And the points start at like 5 and they go up by 5 points, starting at like the 42nd place. But the first place is valued at 10 million points.
Which causes everybody to turn towards him with evil intent in their eyes. And he's just, his reaction to it, he's like, oh no, what have I done?
So yeah, that's where the episode ends. So it's going to be an interesting next episode for Deku, because he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So yeah, let's move on to the next show.
All right, Attack on Titan Season 2. Episode 28. We were picking up right where we left off in the last episode at Connie's village. They're standing around speculating why it's so odd that there's no blood or bodies, but yet all the houses are still destroyed like in a Titan attack. Mm-hmm. Even the horses have been left behind in the stables. They're getting ready to leave, and then Connie thinks he hears the Titan on his house say, "Welcome home." Creepy.
And like so Reiner kind of like goes back and says like, you need to focus on the mission, basically. Yeah.
Right. And they just have a little argument, and Connie's like, you're right, I gotta go. And just right off the bat, this episode is just jumping around like mad.
It is. Yeah.
So we immediately jump to 7 hours after Titan Spot. Ymir and Krista are heading south. They have an argument about why Ymir looks after Krista and why she gave Krista a spot in the top 10. You don't really get anything out of it, just that Ymir is obviously there protecting Krista and looking over her for some whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Jump to 9 hours after Titan spotting. We're over at the eastern defensive line. It's just a battle scene where they bait a Titan into a line of cannons and pummel it to death, and giving Rico a chance to fly in and cut the Titan's neck and kill him. Then we jump to Hans. Like, these are super short scenes, and that's all they're doing. And I mean, they're entertaining, don't get me wrong, but so we're back to Hans. They think they should be close to the hole in the wall, but are concerned about the complete lack of Titans. It's just weird. If there's a hole, there should be way more Titans. Why have they not even run into any while they're running along the walls to find these holes?
Yeah, they're getting spooked. Yep.
Yeah, it's just weird. Things aren't adding up. Jump to 11 hours after Titan Spot. Now we're with the Southern team. It's at night, and it's strange because one of the guys is concerned about a Titan coming out of the dark at any moment to eat them. Mm-hmm. But they know the Titans don't move at night, so it's just a nerves thing, I guess. I'm assuming is what his problem is.
Yeah.
As he's like fretting over this, they suddenly see another set of torches coming towards them, and it's Ymir and Krista's group, and they're all just like see each other in shock, and they're like, "You didn't find a hole? You didn't find a hole either?"
Yeah, they went around the whole wall and nobody found a hole.
And so they're like, is it possible we could have missed a hole? And they're like, no, there's no way we would have missed the hole. And then just in this weird thing of magic, one of the soldiers says, it would be nice if only they had some moonlight to see by. And like I said, apparently she's magical, because then the moon immediately comes out behind the clouds. I was like, what? That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
That was very anime.
I was just like, this doesn't belong in this show particularly, but whatever. The moon comes out, and what it reveals is an abandoned castle just a little ways off in the distance. So that's where they head towards to spend the night. Then we jump back to Levy's group in the wagon. They come to the conclusion that the wall is made of Titan's hardened skin, just like what was her name at the end of season 1? Annie hardened like that, but they can harden it like a wall also. And they speculate that Aaron might be able to fill the holes in the wall if he uses his Titan Harden's ability. Armin also says they should do this operation at night since the Titans can't move. So like he presses this, which becomes an issue later. And then also that the answers to everything are in Aaron Dad's basement.
Of course. Gotta get to that basement.
Oh man. So they arrive at their destination, excuse me, and the priest is struck by all the people being affected by the Titans getting in. And then he tells everybody that he was told to look after a certain girl who just joined the corps this year. It's obvious it's Krista. He like explains her to a T.
Yep.
Yeah. And I put the note, just say it. Just say it's Krista.
Yeah, just say it's Krista.
How do you know it's her? and then also she might have all the answers. So I don't know why this said it twice, but stop saying this already. Because I was like, you just said this twice in 5 minutes. But also that she's in the 104th, which means she's deep in the front line. So that's bad. So we jump back immediately to Mir and Krista, further enforcing that it is Krista, when they're suddenly besieged by Titans in their tower, like a ton.
A ton of them. And they're moving at night. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're moving at night, which is like, they're like, what the hell's going on? Which is like the intro to the next episode. But we also see the Gorilla Titan, who has intelligence that we know of. And he's climbing up the wall. And then the soldiers with gear begin to attack the Titans. Levi gives a pep talk and then end.
Oh man! So I've already seen episode 4. Like
me too.
This is like this is a big setup episode. Yeah, and it's good, and it makes you really curious. So I will say at the end of this episode, I thought like, okay, either Krista or Ymir is a Titan. And I'm kind of at this point leaning towards thinking that Krista is a Titan because I was like, I just want like a little moe girl to be a Titan.
Yeah, so like I read the manga and I remember thinking, I thought it was like Reiner. I thought.
Well, Reiner, is also acting a little bit weird maybe too. But
yeah, see, I thought it was Reiner when I read the manga. That was my guess.
But yeah, I'm just say I'm very excited to talk about
I'm surprised you
next
thought
episode.
Krista. I wasn't thinking that at all.
Well, I knew it was Krista or Ymir because like they had hinted it in these episodes that there was something with one of them, and
it's either that or since I've read the manga, I'm remembering. I do already know Krista's secret, so maybe that's overriding my memories, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, could be.
Do you have anything else you want to say about this episode?
Yeah, there's this weird musical theme that plays every now and then in Attack on Titan. And it was getting in my head, and I was like, where have I heard this before? If you listen to the ED to the show Monster, there's this weird synth sound at the very end of the ED, like in the last 10 seconds. And there's a theme in Attack on Titan Season 2 that uses that same instrument. It's hard to describe. You'd have to go just listen to the end of the Monster ED and you'll know what I'm talking about. But that weird high synth, like dissonant noise plays in some of the like shorter, like quiet scenes of Attack on Titan. And I really like it because it's just like a very unsettling noise. But yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
I like your note that does that mean we're getting a Moe girl Titan?
Yeah, I was like, I want a Moe girl Titan.
Well, you don't get it. I'll just put that out there. This show will not go there. And I will say, I think it was the next episode, but the way the Titans are just like goofy in the way they act made me crack up again.
Oh yeah, well we'll get to that.
I don't think
next
there was
week.
any from this episode, but yeah, it's
not much because there wasn't too much Titan. Well, that one Titan keeps coming back who the internet is making like a meme of. He's like this guy who like has his arms crossed, and he's like the first one to charge up to the tower. He's been made a meme because like there was like a Twitter post or something. It's like
they keep recycling them. You say?
Yeah, it's like when that Titan looks at you and like I don't know. It's just stupid stuff. It's just really stupid. He has this dumb face on. But yeah, it seems like the gorilla has this group of Titans who he's like been training. So it's the same ones. Yeah. So anyway,
there seems to be intelligent Titans out there that can apparently go from human to Titan.
Yep.
And who and why they are, we have no idea yet. But
all right, let's wrap it up.
Cool. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And also follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well.
Also, Savage did a crazy redesign of our like branding and stuff, which looks awesome. So
he did, and it's pretty cool.
Send some love to Savage if you see that and you like it.
All right, that's it. See ya.
See ya.